Begin today at the Mishnah on Daf Chav Vav Amud Aleph. Sagt der Heilige Mishnah, Bas Yisrael lo tiyaled es ha'ovedes kechavim. A Jewish woman should not be a midwife for a non-Jewish woman. The reason is because she's helping give birth to a child that will then be serving Avoda Zara. So you're assisting Avoda Zara. Aval ha'ovedes kechavim meyaledes Bas Yisrael. But we could allow a guy to be a midwife for a Jewish woman that's giving birth, and there's no concern about this. We'll see in the Gemara there will be actually a machlokes about this. We'll see more details. Bas Yisrael lo tonig beno shel ovedes kechavim. A Jewish woman should not nurse a son, a baby of a guy. Ovedes kechavim. She serves Avoda Zara, and the child is being raised for Avoda Zara. You're helping raise the child for Avoda Zara. Aval ovedes kechavim minika beno shel Yisrael. A guy, you couldn't allow a guy to nurse the child of a Yid b'rishusa, as long as it's in the house, in the domain of the Yid. Can't allow the guy to take the child to their home, because there's a concern that they can kill the child. Similar, it says in Mefarshim regarding the first case of the Mishnah, that when it says that you could allow a guy to give birth, to be the midwife of a Jewish mother giving birth, it's only if it's in the house of the Jewish woman. The only reason the Mishnah doesn't spell that out clearly in the first regarding the first halacha is because back in the times of the Gemara, all births were home births, and it's obvious that it was in the home of the Jewish woman. Okay, here the Gemara brings a brayse regarding both of these halachas of the Mishnah that is actually machlokes. Taner Rabbana, we learned in the brayse Bas Yisrael lo tiyal etzavedes kechavim. A Jewish woman should not be the midwife for a guy avedes kechavim l'pnei shemiyaledes ben avedes kechavim, because then you're assisting to bring a child in the world that will serve Avoda Zara. A Goyish woman that serves Avoda Zara should not, so here the Tana of this Braisa says, should not be a midwife to give birth for a Jewish woman, because they're suspected of spilling blood and they could kill the child. This is Rab Meir's opinion that argues in our Mishnah. The Chachamim say, Ovedes kechavim meyaledes es Bas Yisrael. A guy, Ovedes kechavim, could be a midwife for a Jewish woman. Bisman sha'acheres oimnes al gaba. Only if there's someone else, a Yid, that's standing there over her and overlooking what's going on, then there's no concern. Avaloi beino lebeino. But not if they're alone and there's no one else that's oimed al gaba, then it is a problem. So the Gemara now explains. What Rab Meir that argues in the Chachamim, what does it mean? Rab Meir holds that even if you have someone else that's standing there observing what's going on, it's still not allowed to have a goy, Avodas Kechavim, be a midwife for a Jewish woman. Because the Zimnin, even with you have someone that's observing, it's still possible that from time to time the manchale yada apusa v'kotlale, that the non-Jewish, the Avodas Kechavim, the midwife, she can place her hands on the soft membrane by the head of the child and can kill the child. V'lo mischazi, and it won't be detected. Therefore, it's still a concern according to Rab Meir's opinion. And the Gemara brings an example of a story that happened. There was a non-Jewish woman, an Avodas Kechavim, that said to her friend, Molde Yehudaisa Bas Molde Yehudaisa. You're a midwife for Jewish children, the daughter of a midwife of Jewish children. She was saying this to her like derogatory, trying to put her down, that you're the one that gives birth to the Jewish children. So this woman that heard this, she responded and said, Amra Allah, she said to her, Nefishim bishta dahi etzeh. Let bad things come upon this woman. In other words, this friend of hers that put her down. How much? The kamashpilna mina yedama ki ufye denara. As much as the blood that I spill, that when I give birth to the Jewish children, that she would kill the babies, and the blood would spill like the ufyu denara, like the foam on the rivers. So she was telling her that you think I'm a Jewish midwife, but she kills the babies. So we see over here that even though there was someone that was observing, but nevertheless she caused the babies to die. So we can't rely on that. The Rabbanan that disagree with this, and they say that as long as there's someone observing, it's okay. So Amalei, they'll say to Rab Meir, Loihi. You don't have to be concerned about this incident that you're repeating here, because b'milsa ba'alma hudai kimta. She's just exaggerating. She wanted to establish herself and be strong, so she tells a friend, let bad things come upon you like all the babies that I killed. But she didn't really mean it literally that this is what she did. As long as there's a medes al gaba, someone observing, we can detect, we can see what she's doing, and there won't be any problem. And the Mishnah said, Bas Yisrael letanik, that when you have a Jewish woman, she should not nurse a baby that's going to be serving Avoda Zara. Tana Rabbanan and Abraisa, we learned the machlekes about the Mishnah here as well. The Bas Yisrael letanik b'noshel Avedas Kechavim, a Jewish woman should not nurse the baby of an Avedas Kechavim, nishon megadelas ben Avedas Kechavim. She's helping raise a child to go serve Avoda Zara. And here, according to Rab Meir, in this Braisa, the reverse is also true. Vayvedas kechavim loy tanik es b'noshel Bas Yisrael. You can't allow an Avedas kechavim to nurse the baby of a Yid v'pnei shechashuda al shvichas damim, because she's suspected of spilling blood, of killing this baby. Divrei Rab Meir, this is Rab Meir's opinion, that argues with what it said in our Mishnah. Chachamim say Avedas kechavim manika es b'noshel Bas Yisrael. A woman of Avedas kechavim could nurse the baby of a Yid, as long as there's someone else, it's a medes al gaba that's observing to be sure that she won't harm the baby. But not if it's private, if it's just this Goyish woman with this baby. So the Gemara again explains what's our machlekes here. Rab Meir that argues and says that you can't have a goy Avedas kechavim nurse the Yiddish baby. He argues and says, even in a case where there's someone else observing, it's also not going to be allowed. Because the zimnin, the shaifel, the sama, the dad ma'avroi, because what this Goyish woman could do is, she could smear some poison on her nipple, and then the katlale, and the baby will be nursing, and the baby will die, and it's something that will not be detected at all, because she does it even before she comes into the room to nurse. So that's something that Rab Meir says you have to be concerned for. So we have both of these cases that seem to be a very similar machlekes between Chacham and Rab Meir. In a case where there's a medes al gaba, is there a concern by a midwife and a concern by a Vedas Kechavim being a nurse? So the Gemara explains it was necessary to say both of these cases, the machlekes of both of these cases. Because if we would only say the case of the nurse or the midwife giving birth, by Hikamri Rabbanon, it's there that Rabbanon said, the shari, that it's allowed, because the efshe, it's impossible that she'll kill the baby, because there's people that are there that are observing what's going on. So they'll detect if she's doing anything that she'll, as the Gemara described before, that she could try to kill the baby. But regarding nursing a baby, where she can apply some poison that will kill the baby, and that's done from before, and when no one sees. In this case, I would say that the Chacham would agree to Rab Meir that it's a problem. And therefore, has to say that even in this case, the Chacham are not saying that we don't suspect this. On the other hand, if we would only say the case of the mother of the Avedas Kechavim that's nursing a Jewish baby, I would say by Hikam Rab Meir, it's only there that Rab Meir said that it's a problem. Because of this issue of applying poison and killing the baby. But in the case of the midwife, where you would try to kill the baby b'shas, other people are there observing, Rab Meir would agree to the Rabbanan that it would be detected and it's not a problem. So therefore tzricha, it says this case to say that Rab Meir still suspects that this could happen by a midwife and it won't necessarily be detected. Therefore it says both of these cases. Okay, just to mention something that all the Rishonim here speak about regarding this halacha of a Goyish woman, Avedas Kechavim. Here it speaks about Avedas Kechavim that's nursing a Jewish baby. There's a Gemara in Yevamos that speaks about not allowing a Jewish baby to nurse from an Avedas Kechavim. The Gemara there says that it's similar to not allowing a Yid to eat from Behemoth Tmeya, milk that's not kosher. And the Gemara says that a baby that nurses from a non-Jewish mother, it's like allowing the baby to eat non-kosher milk. So, and over here the Gemara doesn't bring this up. Here it seems from our Gemara the only concern is that maybe there'll be an issue of shvichas dam, that this nurse will try to kill the baby. So some say that the Gemara here is just discussing this aspect of it, but be'emes there's another issue of it being like similar to non-kosher milk. But there are other Rishonim that say that Gemara in Yuvamis is only a midis chassidus. It doesn't mean literally that it's mamish like non-kosher milk. It's a midis chassidus, but Mikra Adin, it's mutter to allow a baby to nurse from a non-Jewish mother, and the only issue would be shvichas dam. But as long as there's a medis al gaba, and like Chachamim say, then there's no issue of shvichas dam. It's allowed to have a nurse from a non-Jewish mother.
Moshe Rabbeinu was a chassid.
Moshe Rabbeinu, according to that pshat, was a chassid. He didn't want a nurse. I think Gemara says that the ped that's going to speak, divrei Torah. Okay, now the Gemara asks from a brayse b'chlal on the whole halacha of the Mishnah that it said. In this halacha regarding a midwife. So the Gemara asks from what it says in the Braisa, Yehudis, miyaledes, Avedes kechavim b'schar. A Jewish woman is allowed to be a midwife for an Avedes kechavim that's giving birth, as long as it's for pay. Avaloi b'chinam. But she's not allowed to do this for free. But you see here that this Braisa holds that if it's b'schar, you're allowed to be a nurse, or you're allowed to be a midwife, that is. But the Mishnah said, simply that you're helping bring a child that will serve Avodas Kechavim in the world, so it's not allowed. So here the Braisa makes a distinction. Rav Yosef explains that the Mishnah will agree to what it says there in this Braisa because b'schar, it's different. Why? B'schar shari, if you're being hired and you're being paid to be a midwife, then it's allowed to do this for a guy. Mishum Eida, because if you won't, then this will bring hatred. Because in a case where it's being done b'schar, how are you going to excuse yourself? How are you going to explain why you're not doing this, ready to do this work for a guy as well? You're getting paid. If you're doing it for free, so then you could excuse yourself. You could say, I'm busy. I don't have time now to do this for free. I'm busy with something else. That's what our Mishnah was talking about, that there won't be any Ava, because you could give an excuse and you could explain. But over here, by B'schar, well, you can't give any excuse. This is your profession, and you're still not doing it for a guy, since that will bring Ava. So our Mishnah agrees to what it says in the Braisa, that then you have to give birth even for a woman that's an Avedes Kechavim.
What's this English?
Again?
Yeah. Anything you do, you sell the guy the food. You also...
Okay, to some extent, but Kaneda, this is much more. You're mamish bringing the child in the world, a baby that you're raising and nursing milk. Kaneda, it's much more than just selling him food. There was one opinion in the Gemara before, I think Rav, that said that be'emes you should not sell any food to a guy that's Avedes Kechavim either. And Mishum Eva, we can't do that, or it's impossible. But there was such an opinion before in the Gemara. Now, based on this concept of Eva, the Gemara says that Rav Yosef thought to say and apply this idea in other cases as well. And that is, to give birth, to be a nurse or to be a midwife for a guy on Shabbos, b'schar shari. If you're being hired and you're being paid, it's allowed. Why? Mishum Eva. For the same reason that we just said, because otherwise it'll cause hatred with the Goyim. This is your job, and why aren't you doing it for us on Shabbos? Now what kind of case are we talking about if you're on Shabbos? So some of the Rishonim say that we're not, or I'm not sure if the Rishonim talk about this or Achronim talk about this, that it doesn't mean there's any Chilul Shabbos involved. There's no Chilul Shabbos involved, not Menat Torah, not Midrabanan. You can be a midwife without any Chilul Shabbos involved, but Afal Pikain, the Gemara is saying that the Chiddush over here is that you should go ahead and do this. You should give birth for an Avedes Kechavim on Shabbos for Eva. Other Mefarshim say that the Chiddush here is that there's a Chilul Shabbos Midrabanan involved in this, and still the Gemara Rav Yosef is suggesting that we're not concerned for the Chilul Shabbos Midrabanan because of Eva. But if there's an issue of Chilul Shabbos Menat Torah, that's not what our Gemara is talking about. It's a davar apashat that you cannot be machal Shabbos Menat Torah because of this issue of Eva. So Abaye said to Rav Yosef that for Shabbos there won't be any Eva. You could give an explanation. You could excuse yourself why you wouldn't give birth. You wouldn't be a midwife. This midwife, even if it's for money, can say Didon the Mintri Shabbat Machalalin Alaya. That for babies, for Jewish babies that are going to be born, that are going to keep Shabbos. So we're Machal Shabbos, we desecrate Shabbos for this sake to give birth. Right? The child will be born. It's a famous expression. The Gemara says, Chalal Shabbos Achas Kadesh Yishmer Shabbos Harba. This baby born will keep many Shabbosos. So this is, I'm working today. For a Jewish baby that will keep many Shabbosos, I'm working. But this is my day of rest. I don't work today. So a non-Jewish baby that's not going to keep Shabbos, I'm not going to especially open my clinic, go out of my way to do this for a non-Jewish baby. So this is enough of an excuse that you can give that will not cause Ava. That's what Abaye says.
This excuse itself is Ava.
Again? No, it's not. Because Batson, what's the excuse? The excuse is, I'm really off today. Shabbos is a day that I don't work. I'm off.
And for your people,
yeah, okay. So, yeah. For someone that's going to keep this very Shabbos, the day of rest, for that I make an exception. But for this, I don't make an exception. Okay, actually, it says clearly in the Paiskim that if it's a kind of excuse that we know that the Goyim will not accept and it will cause Ava, then the Taka is allowed. That's okay. Okay. Another case, the Gemara says, where Rav Yosef wanted to apply the same concept of Ava. So Rav Yosef Lemeima, Rav Yosef thought to say as follows: Anuki bischar shari, to nurse a non-Jewish baby, if it's for pay, it's also allowed. The same reason, because of Ava. You're getting paid, you're being hired for this. So how are you going to excuse yourself why you're not doing it for a non-Jewish baby? Amalei Abaye, so Abaye says, no, regarding nursing, there are excuses you can give. Yachla Lemeimar, this woman could say, the Gemara says, depends who she is. If she's a single woman, she could say, Binalin Suvi, I'm trying to get married, and therefore for me to nurse, to nurse babies, so it's going to make it hard for me to go and get married. That's one excuse you can give. If she's currently married, she could say, I don't want to make myself dirty to not be able to come back to my husband. She can give these excuses. Therefore, she can avoid nursing a non-Jewish baby, so therefore we don't use the svara of Ava anytime she can give an explanation why she's not doing this. Another case, the Gemara says, Rav Yosef Lemeima. Rav Yosef thought to say, the Tanya, this that it says in a Braisa, the ones that are serving Avoda Zara, and v'royei behemet daka, and those that are shepherds for small livestock. Now these shepherds of these small livestock were ganovim. They allowed their animals to go and graze in private properties, and they did this repeatedly. They're not just stam ganovim. This is ganovim that did this repeatedly after warnings, but that's what they did. So they went and damaged people's properties constantly. So regarding these kind of people, the halacha is that loy mailin v'loy meridin. If they're found in a place, in a pit, and they're stuck there and they have to be taken out to save their lives, we don't have an obligation to take them out to save their lives. But v'loy meridin, you're not allowed to kill them in the first place. You're not allowed to throw them into this pit. But once they're there, you don't have an obligation to save their lives. So asuki. So the question is asuki bischar shari mishum eva. So Rav Yosef actually came and said that if this is something that you do as a profession, you help people that are stuck and you can take them out of this pit. So if you're in this place and you're not going to save this guy, this person that's over the Avoda Zara, so then it's going to be Ava. He says, this is your job. Why aren't you saving me? If you're doing it for free, so you can say, I'm busy now, I'm not interested. But for schar, then you're going to have to save this guy that's a Ava Kechavim for Ava. Amalei Abaye, so Abaye answers, not even in such a case, you can still give an excuse. You can say to the person that's stuck there in the pit, Koi bria igra. I'm running, my son is stuck on the roof and I have to get him down. You can give him an excuse that you're busy running to do something else. Inami nikita lizimnu lebei davar. Or you could say, I have a very important meeting with a government official that I must be at, I can't be late and I have to run. So if you can give an excuse, you don't have this svara of Ava that applies that you'll have to save them. Tani Rabavo. So here now the Gemara brings this brayse that was just quoted. It brings the whole brayse. Tani Rabavo kamed Rav Yechanan. Rabavo taught this brayse in front of Rav Yechanan. So it says again, those that serve Avoda Zara, and those that are the shepherds of small livestock that are constantly stealing from people. You don't take them out of a place where they're stuck, but you don't kill them. You don't throw them in there. Aval, but there's another category of people that you can kill them l'chatchila. Haminin, which usually is translated as heretics, but here Rashi says minin means the priests for Avoda Zara, not just someone that serves Avoda Zara. Mamish priests for Avoda Zara, whether it's a yid or a guy. V'amesayris, people that are informers, and this is people that are informing to the government against another yid to steal, to take away money from yidden. a meiser. This is a very, very terrible thing. And v'hamumrim, and a person that is someone that is rebelling against Yiddishkeit. There's another girsa here, v'apikursin, someone that's rebelling. So, and for these, hayu meiridin v'loy mailen, that you can be mated them into a place where they'll die, and v'loy mailen, and you don't, when you see them stuck in such a place, you don't have to take them out. Right? So simply, what this simply means is that you're allowed to kill them, and which means even be yadayim. So I mean, the lashon of the Brai says mashma meridin, that you can put them in a place where they'll be stuck there and then they'll end up dying. It's only a grama, but it says that the meridin, these are people that you're even allowed to kill achatchila. Okay, so now on this the question was asked. So Bavo said this Brai in front of Rabbi Yochanan. So Amalei Rabbi Yochanan said that one of the details here seems incorrect, because ani shaina, I learned the following drasha. When it says in the pasuk regarding a lost object, l'chol aveda sachicha, that if it's an aveda that belongs to your brother, they have to return it. So what's this extra word achicha here teaching? L'rabais es amumar. Even if this is an aveda that belongs to a yid that's a mumar, he's rebelling against his Yiddishkeit, you still have to return the aveda to him. And so the va'at omret hoyim meridin, and you say regarding this mumar that you can kill him, you can put him and lower him in a place where he's going to die. Even his aveda you have to return to him. And Taisus over here adds that this pasuk of the Chol Aveda Zachicha, there's another place the Gemara actually dashens. I think it was we learned this in Sanhedrin, that itself is the source for this, that you have to save the life of another Yid. If you have to return to him his lost object, for sure you have to do whatever possible to save the life of another Yid. So over here, regarding this mumar, since it's from this pasuk that we learned that you have to return to him his Aveda, how can you say that you can kill him, that you might read in? Therefore he said, Sami mikan mumar. So you have to erase mumar from this brayse. But the Gemara asks on this, Vilishani lei, why wouldn't he answer him? It depends what kind of a mumar. There's two different people that are rebelling, that are not keeping Torah mitzvahs. Kan b'mumar echel nevelos l'tiyaven. When it's a mumar that's eating nevelos, he's eating non-kosher foods, but he's doing it because l'tiyaven, for his good appetite. He's hungry, he wants food, and he can't find kosher food, so he eats for his appetite non-kosher food. So it's this person that we darsha from the word Avoda Zara, they have to return to him a lost object. And but if it's someone that's rebelling against Yiddishkeit, not because he's hungry, not because of his appetite, but simply because he's rebelling, is because he wants to anger Hashem. In such a case, he's not included in that drasha of Avoda Zara, and you don't have to save his life, and then furthermore, you could even be mighted him, you can even kill him. Why didn't the Gemara make this distinction and give this answer? Answers the Gemara, Kasavar, it's because Rabbi Yochanan held, Oichel nevelis lahachis, one that eats non-kosher food and he's over on Torah mitzvahs just to anger Hashem, minhu. He's in the same category that was already mentioned before in that brayse. Min, the minim. Minim is someone that's a priest for Avoda Zara. So someone that is lahachis, being rebelling against the Eibishter, is already in that category of a min. And therefore he says, erase mumrim from here. So here the Gemara actually brings the source of machlokes regarding this halacha of the mumar l'tiyavin and the mumar lahachis. Says the Gemara, pligi be Ravacha v'Ravina. Ravacha and Ravina argued about this. Chad Omar, one of them said that l'tiyavin is a mumar. Someone that is doing these averis and he's doing it for his good appetite, he is a mumar. He's defined as a person that's a mumar we can't trust regarding many different halachas. Lahachis, however, if he's doing it to anger Hashem, so then he's not called a mumar. He's already a level lower. Minhu have. He's called a min, like a priest for Avoda Zara. Chadamar, but another opinion is afilu lahachis, even the one that's doing it lahachis to anger Hashem, nami mumar. He's also only categorized as a mumar, but not a min. Elei zehu min. Who do we refer to as a min? Ze ha'evid elile kechavim. This is the one that serves Avoda Zara. He's a priest for Avoda Zara. He is referred to as a min. So the Gemara asks from the lashon that it says clearly in a brayse. Meisvei, the question is, the brayse says, Ochal parush echod, ayitush echod, the person ate a fly or a mosquito, harezeh mumar. So this person is called a mumar. He's rebelling against Yiddishkeit. Now, a person that's eating a fly, it's disgusting. So why is he eating this? He's only eating this because he's not for any appetite. He's doing it to anger Hashem. So this individual, it seems to be clear that he's only doing it to anger Hashem. The katani mumar, and it refers to this person as a mumar and not with the level, a level lower to be a min. So it's a clear raya that even lahachis is called a mumar. Answers the Gemara, Hasam, no, we could say actually that this individual is still doing it just for his good appetite. Boy, lemitem taimidei surah. He wants to taste the taste of something that's aser, and therefore even this fly, this insect, this mosquito, he's tasting. That's what the Mefarshim add. That's why it says here, the lashon of the Braisa is that he ate parish echad or yitush echad because he wanted a taste. If this person is eating again and again such things that are not good tasting and that are disgusting, then we know that it's being done just lahachis. But since the Braisa says echad, we can still say that he wanted to taste the taste of iser. Going back to the lashon that it said before in the Braisa regarding these individuals that you're allowed to kill them. So Amar, the lashon of the Braisa, it said before is hoya miridin, that you could put them down in a place where they'll die, avoloi mailen, and you don't take them out. So the question is, hashta chusimach sinon, if it says that you could put them down in a place where they will die, asukim ibayit, does it need to say that you could take them out from such a place? Why does it add this point again, loy mailen, that you don't take them out? Amar Rav Yosef, so Rav Yosef answer, Amar Rav Yosef bar Chama. Rav Yosef bar Chama says, Amar Rav Sheshis, in the name of Rav Sheshis, le nitzrecha. What the Braisa here is adding is shehemoisa maila bebayr, that if there is a step over there in this pit, what it's saying is megarera. You can take it away. The person would be able to go out with the step after he's already found in the bayr, and he would go out. You can take away the steps from there. The noket le'ila, and you can find an excuse why you're taking it away, and there won't be any problem of eva. V'amar, you say le'teiches chiyusei lavei. I'm taking it away because I didn't want my animals to end up going down these steps into the pit, and I didn't realize that a person is there. Since you can find an excuse, you should take away these steps. That's why the Braisa is adding moiridin. You're allowed to be moiridim in this pit, and furthermore, even after he's there, you can take away those steps from there. Okay, so now Taisus explains over here that there would be another way of explaining this Braisa. You could explain that the Braisa, when it says Meiridin and then it says V'loi Mailen, is talking about two different kinds of cases. Meiridin is in a case where Yad Yisrael Takifa, where you didn't have the koyach to go and kill a guy. So it's saying Meiridin. Then in such a case, for these individuals, Minin, Meisrim, you can kill them l'chatchila. And then it says V'loi Mailen regarding a case where Yad Yisrael is not Takifa, so you don't have the koyach to do that. Right? But the Gemara over here is asking, the Gemara says a different shot. This explains the Barichas. But the Nekuda here is that the Gemara is saying that no, Meiridin, and also in this case itself, V'loi Mailen, it's not two separate cases. And regarding this case itself, if he's already in the Bayer, V'loi Mailen. V'loi Mailen doesn't just mean that you can leave him there and walk away. V'loi Mailen means, the Gemara is being mechadish, that V'loi Mailen is similar to the Meiridin. You're doing an action that will cause him to die because you're taking away the steps from there. The Gemara brings other Ameiraim that's similar. Rabbi Rav Yosef Damri Tarvayu, Rabbi Rav Yosef gave an example and said, what it's saying is, when it adds, Loi Mailen is, Shem Hoisa Even Al Pia Be'er, or Be'er, if there was a stone that is this pit that this person is in, that you cover this pit with this stone, Mechasa, you cover it, and the person can cover it in such a way that it won't even be noticeable what he's doing. He just says, La'aburi chiyusi ilavei. I want to just walk past there with my animals, and I don't want any of my animals to fall into this pit, and therefore I'm covering it. That's what it means here. It says you're doing an action to actually cover it that will cause the person in there to die. Ravina says, Shema Yisulam. If there's a ladder there, Misalka, you can remove the ladder, and the person says, I need the ladder because my son is stuck on a roof and I have to get him down. And so all these Amiram, they're not arguing, they're giving different examples that the V'loi Mailen doesn't just simply mean that you walk away, but V'loi Mailen means you do an action to actually cause this person to die. Tana Rabbanon, we learned in a Braisa, talking about a Yid and a Goy, what a Yid could do for a Goy, what a Goy could do from a Yid. So here the Gemara brings up a Braisa that talks about this Inyan regarding a Bris Milah. Yisrael Mal Esa'evik Kechavim, a Yid could do a Bris Milah for a Goy, L'shum Ger, if the guy is becoming a ger, so you make a bris milah for him for the gatus. Now the Gemara explains la fuke lushum morna. That means excluding that you don't do a bris for a guy if it's for tehillim. If morna literally means a worm, to get a worm out of that area, and therefore they made a bris. So if it's being done for refuah, that you're not allowed. So Rashi here explains that the reason is because it's like what the Gemara said before, loy mailim v'loy meridin. that you don't kill a guy lechatchila, but if he's found in a pit, this Oivik Kechavim, you don't take him out. So over here as well, you're not supposed to make this bris for the guy if it's for a healing, to be a doctor to heal the guy. That you don't do. That's what it says here in the Gemara. It's interesting about this Inyan. It's brought in Shulchan Aruch, and some of the Neisei Kelim, they say that the reason why you shouldn't make a bris for a guy is because the bris is a ice bris kodesh that should be dafka for a yid, and not you shouldn't make a bris for a guy that you shouldn't have this ice bris kodesh. But the Shach over there says that you look in the Gemara, Rashi says here, Taisvus here says that it's nothing to do with this, that a guy shouldn't have the ice bris kodesh. It's mitzad this Inyan that a yid should not be healing an Oivik Kechavim because loy ma'alim v'loy meridin. That's what it is. Okay, further the Gemara brings the Braisa, V'Oivik Kechavim lo yomel Yisrael. A guy should not be the one making the bris for a yid. Mipnei shechashudan al shvichas damim. Because we're concerned that he can spill blood by a yid. He can cause harm to the yid. Divrei Rab Meir, this is Rab Meir's opinion. However, the Chachamim say, Oivik Kechavim, Malas Yisrael, a guy could be the one making the bris for a yid, Bizman Shacher Moim Dem Al Gabay, as long as there's someone else observing. If it's done privately, then a guy is not allowed because there's an issue of a concern of shvichas damim. So according to these Tanaim in the Braisa, it's interesting. It comes out that they hold that a guy is allowed to be the one to make a bris for a yid. The only issue would be a concern of shvichas damim, but otherwise a guy can make a bris. Okay, so now the Gemara is going to bring a discussion about this. First, it starts with a stire from what it says in another Braisa. Frek the Gemara, Rab Meir Oime. So that means that Rab Meir holds that Afila Achedim Oimdim Al Gabay, that even if others are standing and observing, Nami Loi, it's also not allowed. Why not? So the Gemara explains the reason is the Zimnin, the Matzle Sakina, or Mashule Krus Shafcha. Because if the guy is doing the bris, he may tilt the knife and cut off too much, and then the child becomes a Krus Shafcha. This is a child that when it's cut off too much and he can't give birth. So therefore, we're concerned that a guy may do this even when there's someone observing. Well, the Chachamim say that when there's someone observing, we're not concerned. Now, here we have a contradiction. There's a Rab Meir hold that a guy cannot do a bris. There's a concern that he may harm the child. But I'll ask you from what it says in another Braisa. A city that does not have the taich of Reifi usually means a doctor, but here the Reifi means it doesn't have a mile that can do the bris for a Yiddish child. But v'yeshpa Reifi kuti v'Reifi Oivik Kechavim. You have an option of either using the mile, which is a kuti. The kutim are the ones that were Megai in the first Beis Hamikdash, and they weren't keeping Torah mitzvahs properly. The kutim, even after they were Megai, they continued serving Avoda Zara. So you could use this kuti that may be a yid, but he serves Avoda Zara. Or you can use a Reifa Oivik Kechavim. You can use a guy that's a mile. Who should you use? So Rab Meir says, Yamel Oivik Kechavim val Yamel kuti. The guy should do the bris and not the kuti. Divrei Rab Meir. The reason why the kuti should not do the bris, as the Gemara is soon going to bring, because the kuti that does the bris, he does it l'shem his Avoda Zara. They kept certain mitzvahs. They kept the mitzvah of bris, but they did it l'shem their Avoda Zara. When a guy does the bris, this Oivik Kechavim, since they don't do a bris commonly amongst themselves, so when he does the bris for a yid, he doesn't do it l'shem Avoda Zara. So therefore, you should use a guy and the Oivik Kechavim and not the kuti. Rabbi Yehuda says Yamul kuti. No, he says the opposite. Let the kuti be the one to do the bris and not the guy. By the guy, we're concerned for shvichas damim. By the kuti, even if he does it l'shem avodah zara, Rabbi Yehuda holds it's not a problem. But the point is, we clearly see here that Rabbi Meir holds that who should be the one to do the bris? The guy. And the Braisa before we said that Rabbi Meir holds even if there's someone else observing, you shouldn't allow a guy to do the bris because we're concerned that he will cut too much. Says the Gemara Eipach. So you have to switch this to the second Braisa we brought. You have to switch the opinions. Rab Meir was the one that said Yom Kuti v'lo Oivik Kechavim, that the kuti should do the bris and not the guy. Rabbi Yehuda is the one that said Oivik Kechavim v'lo kuti, that the guy should do the bris and not the kuti. Okay, but now the Gemara actually brings a third Braisa. So according to this, that you're changing the opinions in this Braisa. V'savar Rabbi Yehuda Oivik Kechavim shaper dami. Does that mean, according to the way you switch the opinions now, that Rabbi Yehuda holds that a guy is allowed to perform a bris on a yid? But what Tanya we learned in another Braisa, Rabbi Yehuda says, Minayin lamila ba'oivik kechavim shi psula. How do you know that if a guy is the one that made the bris for a yid, that menatayre, the whole thing is possible, not only because of concern of shvichas dam and so on, but it's possible menatayre. Shenem, the pasuk says, "Va'ata es brisi tishmar," that you will keep my bris. And the pasuk that continues and says that brisi tishmar ata v'zaracha acharecha lo'ilam. And therefore we learn from here that only a yid and a zera of a yid is the one that can make a bris, not a guy. So this is a new opinion here. Menatayre has to be dafka yid that makes the bris. So how can you say that Rabbi Yehuda, you changed opinions here, how can you say that Rabbi Yehuda is the one that said that a guy can make a bris? So therefore the Gemara goes back and says, Elo, lo'ilam, loitepich. You're right, we're not going to switch the opinions. Going back to the way it was originally, that according to Rabbi Yehuda, a goy cannot do the bris. So now, if so, the stira that we had before in the opinion of Rab Meir regarding a goy, that Rab Meir said that a goy should not do the bris, and in this brayse Rab Meir says that a goy should do the bris. Okay, so let's finish the inyan over here in the next Talmud. So the Gemara says, this brayse where it says that Rab Meir holds that a goy could do the bris, beroife mumche. When it's not just any moyal or guy that's going to do the bris, but it's a doctor that's an expert. He doesn't want to ruin his reputation. We're not concerned that he may spill blood or kill the baby or do something, cut too much, because then he's going to ruin his whole reputation. So therefore, in this case, Rav Meir says it's allowed. And he said, if it's a guy, but he's an expert for many, then it's allowed. Okay, but the Gemara is still not done. So according to what we said before, is it true that Rabbi Yehuda holds that kuti, shapredami, that a kuti could do a bris for a yid, but what Tanya we learned in the Braise, Yisrael malas a kuti, a yid could do a bris for a kuti, and but the kuti lo yamal Yisrael. But the kuti cannot do a bris for a yid, and here the Gemara brings the reason, as I mentioned before, because they, even after they were Megaya, they still served an Avoda Zara. They had this image of a dove that they would serve in Har Grizim. Because they're doing the bris l'shem Avoda Zara, so they're not allowed to do the bris. This is Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. Now, Rabbi Yosi disagrees with this, and also Rabbi Meir before that we saw, Rabbi Meir holds that a kuti could do a bris for a yid. Why? Because Rabbi Yosi says, where's there a source in the Torah that the mitzvah of Mila has to be done l'shma? That there's a problem that if it's being done l'shem avedis kechaven, maybe it's not a nice thing, but there's no pasuk in the Torah though that says that if it's l'shem avedis zara that it's a problem. So El Rabbi Yosi says, Mal let the kuti do the bris. He can do the bris until he dies. So Rabbi Yosi is giving him a curse as he's talking about this kuti. He says, no, he's doing l'shem avedis zara. It's not a good thing. Let him die. But still, if he does the bris, then the bris is a good bris. So that's the machlokes here. Is there a problem if it's done l'shem avodah zara or not? This lashon of l'shma here in the Gemara, don't confuse this lashon l'shma with the general concept regarding mitzvahs, whether you have to have kavanah for a mitzvah, l'shem mitzvah. We're not talking about that concept. We're talking over here about this Indian that it's done l'shem avodah zara. Is there a problem or not? So here the Gemara is asking. We clearly see here in this brayse that Rabbi Yehuda says that a kuti should not do the bris because it can't be done l'shem avodah zara. And in the brayse before, according to the way we left it, the brayse as it was, Rabbi Yehuda is the one that says that a kuti could do the bris. So Ella, the Gemara says, La'olam epoch kedabchina meikara. You're right, we're going to have to, the Gemara goes back again. The Gemara says we're going to have to switch the opinions the way we said it before. V'dekakashye, the Rabbi Yehuda, ad Rabbi Yehuda. Now it's going to be a contradiction in the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda regarding the kuti. So the Gemara explains, the contradiction is not regarding the kuti, but the contradiction before was regarding a goy, whether a goy could do a bris. Rabbi Yehuda, if we don't switch the lashon of the brayse before, it comes out that first Rabbi Yehuda says that a goy could do a bris, and then it brings another brayse where Rabbi Yehuda says that menatayre, there's a pasuk that a goy can't do a bris. So the Gemara answers, and this is the final answer of the Gemara, that it's two different Rabbi Yehudas. Hahi Rabbi Yehuda hanosihi. The brayse where it says that a guy cannot do the bris, that's a different Rabbi Yehuda. It's Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi. In other words, usually Rabbi Yehuda in the Mishnah is who? Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Loi. Rabbi Loi was a colleague of Rabbi Meir. He always argues with Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi was a generation later. So when it says here that Rabbi Yehuda says that there's a pasuk that a guy can't do a bris, that's a different Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi. The Tanya Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi how do you know if a guy does a bris it's possible? Tamid Laim Evatas Brisi Tishmar. So here you clearly see that Rabbi Yehuda is not the same Rabbi Yehuda. There's Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Loi that says that a guy could do a bris, And Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi says that a guy cannot do a bris. So regarding a guy doing a bris, you have three opinions. There's one opinion that a guy cannot do a bris because we're afraid of shvichas damim, or that, like Rabbi Meir says, it'll cut too much. Then there's an opinion of Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Loi that says that a guy could do a bris, and Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi says that a guy can't do a bris minat Torah because of this pasuk. Batas brisi tishma.